Good morning and a very warm welcome to everyone present here. I'm Disha Jain, Head of Brand and PR at Metamorphosis, and I welcome you all to the episode 4 of Dialogue with Educationists. So, I would like to start off with a quote. Education is not the preparation for life, but education is life itself. So, today we've been discussing extremely controversial and essential topics in our previous panel discussions, but this one's really disruptive. As we converse today, we're sure to change your outlook towards today's education system and how we become change makers to adapt to a disruptive and uncertain ecosystem. So, our topic for today is the only way to create skills for the future is to disrupt the education for today. I already have created a very intense atmosphere by mentioning to you how I'm going to change the mindsets or how the panelists are going to give you really good insights to change this. So, without any further delays, we have our panelists with us, and I'm going to go ahead and introduce them to you. So, we have with us Mrs. Pratima Sinha, the CEO at DSR Educational Society, which has 7 schools named Birla Open Minds under it. A choreograph with 3 decades of progressive qualitative experience in the field of education. She's a postgraduate in early childhood education, published many articles. She's been a speaker at extremely great, controversial educational conferences, developed modules for teaching pedagogy, and she's been awarded multiple awards for her exemplary work in the education field. So thank you, Pratima ma'am, for joining us today. We have our second panelist, Dr. A. Balachandran sir. He is the Senior General Manager at the Technology Business Incubator in VIT. He has 30 plus years of experience and has mentored many startups and guided many innovators. A certified mentor in the National Entrepreneurship Network and also a Business Incubation Master Trainer certified by the World Bank Group. Being associated with the Entrepreneurship Development Institute of India as a resource person for its international training programs. So this can make us understand that he's very passionate about technology, startups, grooming students, and assisting innovators. So thank you, sir, for joining us today. Our third panelist we have is Mr. Subramaniam Kantethi, a business professional for 10 years, but landed up into education 15 years back, and now it's become his passion. Currently, the COO and co-founder of the Premier Academy, which is a CBSE and an IGCSE school in Hyderabad. He was previously associated for 6 years with Pearson School as the business head, and now which was taken over by the Ryan Education Group. So thank you, sir, for joining us today. Our last panelist is Mrs. Kausar Sayed, founder of Learn to Lead. She is highly skilled and an accomplished educator with extensive knowledge of the latest and most effective teaching methods, which specializes in preschools. With over 4 degrees and numerous awards and accolades, this conversation will tell you how passionate she is about her curriculum development. So thank you for joining us today. And she would be a moderator for today and driving this conversation. So once again, I would like to thank all the panelists to join us on this Sunday morning. And before I start off this session, just to give you a couple of quick guidelines to the viewers and panelists. So the viewers, if you have any questions for the panelists or you want any queries, please put them in the Q&A button, which is at the bottom. We shall address it in the last 10-15 minutes of this time. And panelists, we have the next 15 minutes. You have all your ears. So without any further ado, let's start off today's session. Hand it over to you, Mrs. Kausar.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction, Disha.
Thank you.
Very good morning, everyone. So for today's topic, the only way to create skills of future is to develop a disruption in education of today. Starting with disruption. Disruption is a very, very powerful word and has led to many discoveries. But it is very unique in context when it comes to our education system because we are driven by very formally bound processes and systems with very little room for disruption is what we have been observing. Nevertheless, as nature has its own way, and it strongly believes in creating such disruptions, which hit all of us in the form of COVID pandemic, also gave us an opportunity to reboot ourselves and our systems, which we have never done before, and we could have never done if we were given a choice. So let's understand this journey of disruption from our educators who are on our panel today. Starting with Pratima ma'am. Ma'am, you've been You are now the CEO of DSR Education Society, heading many schools and early learning centers. So when this disruption reached us, the first step that all of us were trying to do is we were trying to get our schools online. And during this process, what is that unique discovery that you have made in your organization?
Uh, Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Disha, and thank you, Kausar. Uh, See, disruptions and challenges are part of life, and we should be well prepared for anything that may come tomorrow. So I felt the tremendous teamwork that came out during this time is what I'm really proud of today. It was tremendous teamwork, and I felt that, we are kind of prepared for disaster management also, because when you get up from after falling down and you dust yourself and you're ready to move ahead, that is where it's a very small example. This is where I feel that you are ready for the next move. You are ready for any disaster that may come in. So the first thing was tremendous teamwork, and the next thing what I felt was our focus was that no way the education of the child has to be disrupted, right? Whatever may happen, whatever government is talking about, whatever challenges that we are facing, we have to continue. The show must go on, like how we say. So definitely that came out. Third thing that I really believe in and I felt was we talk about parents being the stakeholders. But now I felt in the true sense that parents are part of the education system, in true sense. That was the third thing I felt. And fourth point that I would like to add on is always now we have understood that plan B should be ready with us. Plan B for anything should be there with us, that okay, if this doesn't work, this should be ready with us and it should work. So those, and I would say wonderful teamwork. People really got onto their toes, lot of innovative ideas, out of the box ideas. And also, what I felt was there were so many opportunities for teachers also to grow. I mean, what they had been doing from years, they had to really stop that and come up with something new. So a lot of opportunities for teachers to grow. That's what I keep telling the teachers, that this is the time you need to evolve yourself, change yourself, and this is what happened. So disaster management, we are sure that we can do it. Plan B, SOPs. I mean, we had to create new SOPs immediately for the functioning of online classes and to find out, how cyber online classes will work and finding out about. So there are a lot of SOPs that have to come in. So immediately SOPs were created. Disaster management, teachers, parents, everybody came together, and this is what I feel, that yes, we can take up challenges anytime.
Yeah. With this input from you, Pratima ma'am, I understand that you did not focus on the problem, but you all immediately got into solving it.
Yeah.
You all started looking at the solution. And
Yes.
this was something that I've noticed for the first time, that all of us were more concerned about the way pedagogy and the teaching learning process was going, and everything else took the backseat for us.
Yep.
The teachers relooking into their own lesson planning and all that. The entire focus was on pedagogy now. And
See,
as you rightly said,
initially they just jumped into it, but now consciously they're becoming better and better.
so we just took it up as a challenge, and now we are making ourselves better and better.
Better into that.
Reflective thinking, reflection of our work. What else can we ask for?
Yes.
When we
Yes.
get this kind of educators who are able to reflect and make their work better. So you say tremendous teamwork, disaster management, which came to you naturally, to all of you naturally, and parents as important part. Yes, parents took a center stage, is what we have all seen during this pandemic time, and strong SOPs. which you immediately, so talking about SOPs is something very unique, I would say. Everybody did not actually think about immediate SOPs at that point. So
Yeah, but
this,
if you don't have SOPs, then if you think logistics and all those things, that doesn't work. So first thing we have to create the SOPs, and we have to have the right people in place.
that's right, ma'am. So with this, I will now would like to take some inputs from Subramaniam sir. Subramaniam sir is the CEO of the Premier Academy, and he has worked with Pearson previously. So with this, I understand that when you created or when you were a part of the system, it managed many schools at a time. And now with this Premier Academy, when this COVID affected, how did this pandemic help you discover the uniqueness of your organization?
Uh, Good morning to everyone, and thanks to Metamorphosis for bringing me as another panelist. Thanks Disha and thanks Kausar. Today there's a lot in the air due to the current situation where we all got pushed into due to the pandemic. So everyone is focusing on this piece, and they are more worried on how the K-12 sector is going to cope up with it, and what will happen to children, teachers, and of course, more importantly, how the schools will sail through this situation. Blah blah. I think there's a current thing going on. So while we need to address this, and I think definitely every school or institution, like how Pritma ma'am has said, every school or institution is actually doing their best to ensure that the learning doesn't get stuck. In my view, we all who have been in the K-12 space from more than 15 plus years, if you ask me this, we know how this space has evolved over many disruptions. The point what I'm trying to say is, disruption is not new. So I personally think that we have crossed almost 2 to 3 generations of evolution in the last decade or so. So what make me think on these lines? My answer is simple. We as educators keep raising the bar higher and higher, and we keep embracing new ways of teaching or learning, so the student always gets the best. So disruption is not new to us, but if you ask me, it's a way of life for all of us. So while before I get into specific of what we are doing it, I thought it's very important in this forum to just take you back a little bit and let the listeners and viewers know how this entire thing is evolved. So I'll just take a couple of minutes to might be to take you back to the history to just refresh our memories what has actually happened with all of us. So to start with, when we started this journey of evolution or digitization or multimedia, we started in a very, very small way. Like I remember we setting up ICT labs in schools, in both public and private schools. I still remember the first tender which came from Tamil Nadu government. Mr. Jayalalitha, who was the chief minister then, floated for setting up ICT labs across 1,000 schools, which I think was the first ever, biggest ever initiative by any state government in this country. So if you ask me, the evolution of this journey or evolution started from them. I think we moved on from ICT labs. I think, from ICT labs, we went to 2D video lessons. I was part of SchoolNet where we created 2D video lessons. I think we all used to get trained. And I remember we struggling to push different boxes. We had a CD player, we had a screen or a TV or a speakers or PC, etc., all this into a small 350 to 400 square feet of Kutti classroom, right? Suddenly, a teacher went into class and she got intruded because suddenly she sees a lot of tech gizmos around her, and she doesn't know any idea what to do about it. But I think that was one of the biggest disruptions during that time. I should give all the credit to those teachers, to those coordinators, to those vice principals and principals who actually, taken it very sportingly and learned all these things. They used to struggle how to get a connection. They didn't know how a speaker used to work and how the speaker, has to get connected to PC. So there was so many challenges. But I think they actually evolved from there. They managed themselves to get into that. Now, while that is happening, I think even that time I was part of the management circles, I was part of the meetings where suddenly the entire focus was on teacher. Everyone realized that he was, teacher is the most important, piece in this entire piece of K-12. So the entire focus on teacher, and there a lot of work happening on capacity development. I remember government coming up with many initiatives like strengthening the national education policy. NCRT was trying to come with its own, education policy. The teacher training, the strengthening of the teacher training board, the rehaul of the entire B.Ed program, etc., etc. And suddenly, communication is become the big driving factor. CBSE started coming with their own guidelines. So even I think, if I'm not wrong, MHRD came up with a lot of focus on capacity building. While this was happening, just to add that MHRD came up with one more angle of a brilliant idea of RTE, right to education. So I think Pratima can vouch, I think, ma'am, that time, suddenly how RTE has thrown all of us into different gear. I should say that, this has pushed all the private unaided school management into different space. I should say out of the gate, completely out of the space. In my view, this created an stir because it's not just about money angle. It's about how to handle the classes. Uh, there was no queue because suddenly the government says, "Ki boss, a private unaided school should become an inclusive school," which was largely a part of a public school mandate, and it was never a private school mandate. But suddenly, government started expecting, or I should say, expecting us who have been running the private unaided.
I think we lost connection with Subramaniam sir. So very quickly, something which I have actually taken from his input is disruption is not new to education. So Pratima ma'am, I understand that he's taking his take from the perspective of managing and planning and not from pedagogy. And that's where he very beautifully shown us the way that disruption is not new to our system. And the capacity building of teaching and when technology got into the classrooms, yes, it must have been certainly disruptive in the way our teachers were able to take it and conduct it in the classes. So he's also built on to the entire story where very beautifully he has told that how the educators have always been passionate about disruption. So with this, I would go to our next panelist, Dr. Balachandran sir. And so till now we have been talking about disruption in education from in early years and then primary, and we have been talking about the K-12. But from you, we would really like to know about how this affected the higher grade education and what was unique, what was the uniqueness in your organization that have come up during this time. I always believe that disruption brings the good and the worst of everyone. And it must have done something like that to our organizations and the people associated.
Yeah. So good morning. Thanks, Kausar, and good morning to my fellow panelists. Thanks, Disha and Metamorphosis for this opportunity. So actually, it came out of the blue, right? So it started with China. Suddenly air bubbles in terms of stoppage of flights started, and mid-March, people were talking about COVID entering India, and all this. It came out of blue, but how do you handle these uncertainties, the VUCA world as popularly known as? So campus was pretty determined, and they were the primary concern on March 19th before the administration was safety of students. Rest all comes next. So the campus decided to close on 19th March. And as it unfolded, dynamic decisions were taken. So handling disruptions is actually how you're composed of the situation, how you're dynamically mapping from the environment and adapting yourself. So I think there I feel beyond campus, I would also see the interplay between the government, the academia and industry. I'll come to that in a bit. And Pratima ma'am was mentioning about the involvement of parents and students. They're the primary stakeholders in the game. But the interplay between the government, industry, academia, which is called as triple helix model in US and other places, which is actually powering the innovation. So when you look at how this triple helix in a way helped this handling this disruption, it's very, very interesting. Government was very, very empathetic. They were hell-bent on protecting the safety and interests of the parents and students. So campuses had to immediately adopt to this new situation. The technology empowerment through the industry, whether it is Coursera's or the Microsoft Team Access. So all this came together, and there was a willingness on the part of all the stakeholders, teachers and students, to adapt to these new requirements. And think of a campus with 30,000 students and a fag end of the semester in April, and all the examination process, practicals, Viva OC. Seamlessly, most of these things got completed, and June 1st onwards, even consolidated mark sheets were made available to the students who were willing to apply for higher education and all. So the preparation was possible because there was a seamless integration of technology with the system. And 13th June onwards, the current semester, which is going to be entirely online, also has commenced. And this disruption had one denominator across all the three stakeholders. I would call that as learning. So learning never stops, whether it is off campus or in campus or mixed new campus format, which is going to come in the coming years. Learning has been given primary importance, and we are also learning to learn on a continuum. So these are all the perspectives I would like to open up. We could continue.
Thank you, Dr. Balachandra, sir. I really like the way you have surfaced the importance of industry-academia partnership here. And that is something that we also now need to look in at school levels. Now I would like to go back to Mr. Subramaniam. So you were sharing a very beautiful story with us of evolution of education, where technology has come and it got weaved into the system. And the first sentence which you started with, saying that disruption was never unique to the education system, is certainly something that I would like to hear from you more. And
yeah,
I would also—
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I think technical glitch, I got logged out of the Zoom. So the point what I was trying to say is, like, there have been series of, I should say, disruptions, or I should say the evolutions caused because of various disruptions happened around us in K-12 space. So I think I got logged out when I was talking at the point of RTE. So the right to education itself was a huge, if you ask me, is a disruption caused to the schools, especially the private and aided schools. And it's like we had to go back to the running board. We need to train the teachers on how to make the classes more inclusive, how to make the classes more amenable to the children who are coming from different status of life and all those things. So while we've started learning these pieces, suddenly we all have realized that there was too much focus on teachers. So but suddenly one great idea came. Oh, I think we are supposed to focus on child or the learner, right? Not on the teacher. So ultimately we're all supposed to be answerable to the learners. And so that's when I think the great thought of 21st century schools got evolved. So, I keep hearing this question repeatedly from last many years at various forums. What are these 21st century schools you all talk about? Because some of my cousins who are in different, space like IT or any other sectors who are not into schools, they say, what is the big difference between 20th century schools and 21st century schools? What different you do in this? So my answer again is very simple. The focus moved from a teacher to student on all the fronts. For example, let me just give a small 2-3 examples. Like, for example, we moved from textbook driven to research driven. We moved from passive to active learning. We moved from a fragmented to integrated curriculum. We moved from a print material to a multimedia content. We moved from a standard typical exams or unit tests to a more formative and summative assessments, and of course multiple form of assessments eventually, and also most importantly from a memorization thing to a higher order thinking skills. So there is a huge difference. If you ask me, the scale is very high. If you say we moved suddenly from a what to call, I should say, I still remember pager. I don't know many of them whom knows pager. Pager is the instrument which was had a very, very short life. I think Balchandra sir is laughing, so I think he might have used that. I might have used that time. But between a telephone to mobile, pager had a very, very short life. So that's what I think, you can't compare what a mobile had done vis-a-vis the pager. So that's how, there's no comparison in 20th and 21st century schools, very different. So that's where I think CBSE came up with that game-changing idea that we should introduce CCE. I think, Kausar or Pratima ma'am or everyone will be aware what CCE is, a continuous comprehensive evaluation. So it pushed us again into action. No one knows what actually CCE is. First of all, the definition of CCE, how to make it, how it works. So again, we all went back to the drawing board. We all got ourselves equipped with the knowledge. CBSE started conducting various workshops on how to break the CCE parts. And we got ourselves acquainted, then trained the teachers, and the parents used to come and ask, what is the CCE all about? Is it another way of charging higher fees? Because parents, unfortunately, every time when you try to do something, they only get associated with the fees. And absolutely, they are not at fault. They're absolutely right. Because they are all concerned because they are paying for it ultimately, right? So the CCE got evolved. And again, we gone into this journey of, unlearning and learning. So while this is happening, when we were at Pearson, that we realized that while there is so much of work happening, and there are multiple data points that are coming up from various sources, schools or educators are not able to successfully act upon that data and make informed decisions. Further, again, it was too fragmented. So that's when at Pearson, we came with the product called MyPedia, which conceptually has everything and anything which as educator learner want to have in the process of learning, and also suited to the most, evolved tech-savvy parents, teachers, and learners. So I could see another, evolution that came up just about, 3-4 years back. So we at Premier have taken these things positively. We got quickly oriented ourselves to the new online schooling, as rightly said by Pritam ma'am, create the SOPs, geared up our resources, trained our teachers quickly on the same. So, and started the school online and having the school online schooling. While me and my partner, Mr. Sindhu Reddy at Premier, want to give a lot to our learners, we have cherry-picked the most essential learning elements and ensuring that the learners are not deprived of those during these testing times. So I should say, thanks to those, I think multiple disruptions caused a period of last 1.5 decades, while the current pandemic made us locked down and confined into our homes, we as educators haven't stopped our process of facilitating learning to our young learners. Sorry to take you all back into the history, but I thought it's relevant to know how we evolved so that we get our motivation back on track to sail through this current situation successfully and stick to one of the slogan of Pearson, that is always learning. Thank you.
So I really like this story by the way, and evolution is a process, part of the process is what you have taught us. And it has actually, maybe it will give a lot of strength to each one of us who feel that they are stuck or into the struggling stage, that evolution has always evolved for better. So getting inputs from all of you, we have understood that disruption was always there. Disruption has been a part of the education sector, is what you were saying. And we have always been self-destructive, is what you have tried to emphasize. So summing it up, I understand that all of you, have actually not focused on the problem, but none of you actually spoke about the problem at all. None of you said that when the COVID disruption happened, we were worried, we were thinking. None of you actually talked about those emotions or those challenges. Each one of you talked about the solutions that you all have taken in your organizations or in your capacities. And you have also thought about how this can become an opportunity for many of us who are actually attending this. So I see a very important skill here, which is the problem solving skill. So this disruption has strongly triggered our problem solving skills, and we all came up with unique solutions in our own organizations. And that's the way beautifully we have emerged in schools. Taking this forward, this is certainly times where we understand that we have all come together. This was for the first time that it was a universal problem. Across the borders, across the schools, we have different kinds of schools in India. We have public schools, we have got private schools. Again, in private schools, we have got different budget schools, and then we have got high-end schools. So I think the variety of schools that we have in India is something which is beyond comparison with any other country. Having said that, all the schools, each educator was on the same page. All of us were together in this problem, and each one of them were looking at the problem solving side of it. During this time, in the process, I would want to know from you, Pratima ma'am, that what was it my way or our way during these times? With this, I don't mean with reference to our own team or our own school, but as it was our problem, it was a problem that we all as an education fraternity were facing. How did you have to, was it your problem or it was our problem, and how did it go there?
Kausar, I just go back to Subramaniam's story, Mr. Subramaniam's story. I was just thinking when he was talking about how, evolvement has been happening. Today, IB schools are worldwide. Now, how did IB curriculum evolve? Small, village in Italy, Reggio Emilia, it was, totally destroyed by war. And parents, they felt, that, oh my God, now how will our children study? So that's the time they came up with whatever resources are available, around them. They started using those resources for teaching their children. So that is what I think Mr. Subramania was talking about when he was saying the disruption is actually the next phase, the previous phase to learning more. Right. So today, IB schools are across the world, and we are adopted. Most of the preschools now are adopting actually, IB programs. So that was wonderfully said, sir. And secondly, I also want to bring in, I had seen a poster where we have been doing a lot of seminars and all, and people have been asking, okay, online classes, laptops and devices and all these things, what about people who can't afford it? What about schools, where parents can't afford such devices and all that? I came across this beautiful, innovative idea of a principal where he's put mics, okay, and he's got those mics all over the place, and he's teaching through the mic, and children are sitting in various places. So it can happen if anyone wants to do something, it can happen. So nothing is impossible actually. Now coming back to your question, today is the time of collaboration. Today is the time for connectivity. Today is the time when we all put our heads together, and the focus remains the same, as I said, that learning has to go on. So the sessions that we are attending, the webinars that we are conducting. Yesterday, I had a session of assessment because taking online assessment has become such a major issue. Lot of school principals, lot of teachers, they don't know how to conduct online classes. There was talk also about in case the child sitting at home and doing assessment, he may cheat, right? So this is how we are connected now. We are helping each other now. I couldn't even think that we'll be able to connect with educationists from Australia or Canada or Italy. But today we are doing that, right? Because bringing them to our conferences and all, very expensive. But today, in fact, I feel it's a blessing right now that we are able to connect, get the good practices from across the world, and based on whatever is required in our school, we can take on. So a beautiful collaboration, a worldwide collaboration is happening as of today. So definitely it's our education field, our education, not about myself, but it's about the whole world.
That's beautifully said, Pratima ma'am, that it's not my way, but it is certainly our way, and the collaboration is a key or a way forward for all of us. And I really cherish the story and of Reggio Emilia that you have got here. I think somewhere in your own subtle ways, you have actually given a solution to a problem that all of us are facing. That when I remember Reggio Emilia is a project-based method, and it started when there was a war in Italy soon after that. So somewhere COVID disruption is also like a war, and project method can be a very good solution to the way teaching learning process can be given to children.
So today
So this-
what we are telling our teachers, Kausar, sorry, that talk about resources that are available in the house. You know, don't talk about resources which are not available. So even for preschools and all, when we do online teaching, it is whatever resources are available in the house, use them, because we cannot go beyond that.
That's right. And if we actually go back to the Reggio Emilia era, he has also given a lot of importance. He has actually done that because he was very worried about the emotional well-being of the children. And he wanted to shift their focus from being affected by the war to being productive and to discover something, which was through the project method. So this can be one of the strongest reason that has kept the passion up for all our educators, where we actually thought that, you know, engaging children is very important for their mental well-being at this point of disruption. I would like to continue this with Dr. Subramaniam, Mr. Subramaniam, sir, how was it with you? Was it my way or our way?
So if you ask me, you know, as rightly said by Pratima ma'am, it's always our way in schools, and it's never, you know, my way, because it's not possible, practically feasible. I will also bring in another element here, you know, which you know, I was sharing in my previous webinars or presentations. During any of these testing times, majority of schools actually, you know, try to come with solutions within themselves without involving all stakeholders. What I mean by all stakeholders is like a teacher, a learner, and most importantly, the parent. I think if you see, there's so much of anguish is happening across the country. Different parent associations have been raising voice. They've been approaching courts. I know the matters have reached to the High Court and even to the doors of Supreme Courts. But in my view, there was no need for all these things. If the schools management, the teachers, and the parents could able to get on a call, list down the things what is happening. So I think either the CBC guidelines or even as clearly, you know, described there, put up a process over there, put up a setup over there, organized setup over there, like a parent teacher association is there. So I've seen how effectively or how effective the PTA can be in the actually you know, development of a school or a learner, or how the entire, you know, things can be eased out when you work along with the PTA. If you ask me, even this piece has evolved in the last, you know, I should say in the last 10 years, But, you know, unfortunately, I think a couple of us are still not able to get into to have an active dialogue with them. It's like very simple, right? When you got hit with any of the situation like this, you first see who are there in the house, everyone is safe or not, and then you talk discussing about, and then you discuss internally how you need to run the home, how you need to get the resources, and how you put the things, you know, equally good, and how to survive. So if it's the same conceptually, if you can extend that concept to a school, then I think PTA is one of the important tool which, you know, is already designed. You know, there's no need for us to invent. The best part is either a parent teacher association or a school management, they're already existing in the system. We all only need to learn how to, you know, work along with the PTA for a betterment of the school, and of course by keeping, you know, the learner at the center. If you keep the learner at the center or student at the center, then I think we always think on all these parameters and see how we can make it comfortable for the learner. There's no need for, you know, to always look outside, because every time I see that, you know, whenever the problem comes, we try to look for solution from outside. But in my view, the solution is always within us. We need to get the solution. No one else can get us a solution, right? So, which also proves that it has to be our way, and you know, cannot be my way. I hope I've answered it for you, Kausar.
I totally agree with you on this, sir, that you have very nicely brought about the importance of collaboration, not just between the organizations, but you have within your own organization, that is bringing all the stakeholders together with reference to parents. Yes, this pandemic has certainly, this disruption has certainly taught us the importance of parent association within your own organization. I always felt that this entire noise which is being created outside by different private parent associations is happening only because there was no strong PTAs within your own school systems. And you have also emphasized on importance of not just collaboration but effective collaboration. So that's another important point that we all have to look at, that if we are collaborating and if it's not giving us positive result, what may be the missing link and how do we make it effective? And certainly learn from others who already have been doing it and have success stories. With this, Dr. Balachandra, can we get a little, obviously from the perspective of higher education, we all have been talking about K-12 education. In higher education, when this disruption happened, was it your problem which you were solving within your organization, or it was our problem, our way, where we were also looking at what other organizations or other school or other colleges were doing, or universities?
Yeah, I think as I mentioned before also, the learning is on the continuum. Best practices from everywhere we need to embrace and adopt. So I even quote in some forums, it's okay to copy best practices. But in VIT at least, there has been a philosophy that we need to lead the best practices, create best practices. Even the fully flexible credit system, which was an age-old experiment, more than 10 years, and which actually required the power of technology to implement. Manually, it is impossible to create a fully flexible credit system for 30,000 students. But beyond this, our ways, I would also like to add in a perspective of the past our ways, the present our ways, and post our ways, in the interest of the discussions. So in the past, the examinations were so sacrosanct and important and ultimate. Now we could even do away with some board exams, and so the present is showing us some pathways. Can we learn from this and take some lessons for our future our ways? If class 10, 12 board exams can be done away with, why are we putting so much of pressure on our children on examination system is my first point. The second point is again related to the technology. Technology is a great enabler, and so mobile phones were not allowed in most of the engineering colleges, at least in Tamil Nadu. So it were confiscated, and now classrooms are happening in mobile phones and tablets. And so technology was neither good or bad. It is how the technology was used. So if some of the past our ways were not helping us to contain the bad practices, so can we pick some good practices? Children, if they are guided properly, they are really using the power of technology. My daughter, who is in class 6, she's collaborating with her classmates over WhatsApp on homework, and which is not a normal practice. And can we continue to use the power of technology? And the best thing is they are not carrying 10 kg of the book load. So can we relook when tablets are enabling, why they need to carry all the books all the days? And so this is what I want to say. Some of the past practices, our ways were not very, very helpful. Pandemic has somehow has given us some light, guiding light. And if we pick those good lessons and move, I think it will be a better future for everyone. And technology is undoubtedly the big level player and democratizing the power of knowledge dissemination.
I'm loving the brimming of positivity in your words, Dr. Balachandra. Even the last time when you were speaking, and even this time when you're speaking, you're just looking at this disruption very, very positively. You're calling it totally as an opportunity. You're just not looking at it as an obstacle. And that's a real big learning that's going to happen. And as you're rightly saying, that learning cannot stop. And the minute you say that the learning is, we are all learned, and that's exactly where we will hamper or we will stagnate ourselves and we will stop ourselves from growing. And assessments being talked about, you know, even Subramaniam sir mentioned CEE, Comprehensive Continuous Education. Pratima ma'am, you will agree with me on this, that when comprehensive continuous comprehensive assessment came, CCE came into the system, it was not meant to be paper-based assessments only. It was actually observation that they were trying to reflect on. And this is something that got missed. So not just bringing disruptions, but processing disruptions properly so that they bring about that positive change is equally important. So the change, the disruption of assessment has come, but it was not actually processed with all the schools. I could see more number of examinations or assessments added, and FA1s were not actually taken as a comprehensive or a project or an observation, but it was actually taken as a paper-based exam in many schools. So disruptions coming into the system and also being taken in positively is another part of making it have a positive impact on the systems. So with this, I'll go to the third part of our discussion, where I was of the opinion that when this disruption happened, we talked about solutions, we talked about collaboration, we all understood that the mindset we had to shift from looking at the problem as solving the problem. It was problem solving skill. We did look at collaboration within our own system and also from organizations outside. While doing all this, was it one way for all of us? Was it one size that fits all? Or did we have a lot of trial and errors to arrive on a method that is now being adapted by teachers?
Kausar, I'll go back to the previous question. Mr. Subramaniam spoke about, that we need to focus on the students. Yeah, we are talking about 21st century learners. I would also say that we need to focus on the professional development of the teachers, because these are the teachers who are teaching the 21st century learners. So they need to themselves become 21st century learners before they can, bring out the 21st century students from their school. So that is one. Professional development is need to be focused as of now, because a lot of new strategies have come in, lot of new focus on online teaching has happened. So the teacher has to really, really rework on it, and to come up to that level of producing 21st century learners. I personally feel that we need to be a 21st century learner too. Only then I will be able to manage that. Second point, I will go to Sir. So you said that tablets should become the future, but you know how government has come up with a screen time, the regular screen time. I'm sure you must have read about it. In pre-primary is just 30 minutes from grade 1 to 8. It is about, I think, 40 minutes, two periods. And for senior classes, just four periods for 40 minutes each. So these are the government, directives that have come out. So what best we have to use, I would say that is what, I'll come back to your last question, that everything cannot fit in one glove. All the hands cannot fit in one glove, because, based on the scenario, based on the need, based on the requirement of my school, or, based on the need of the students, I cannot fit them into 30-minute slot or 40-minute slot or 1 hour slot. So I need to actually, this is where right now, Kausar, we are facing the challenge. This is a major challenge that has come in, and we are really, really, brainstorming ourselves as to how to go about taking up the curriculum per se, within the time frame, right? So right now, according to me, this is a major challenge. And definitely whatever we listen, whatever we attend, whatever we get to hear that this is happening, across the world, the practices that can go well in my school, based on my students, based on my parents, based on my teachers, the quality of my teachers, I can bring in only those practices, right? So it is a very wide topic or question that you've asked. It's very, very difficult to concise it to an answer. There are a lot of aspects to it. But what I would say is definitely one glove cannot fit into everybody's hands. Everywhere, I mean, based on our, maybe Mr. Subramaniam has got a new school which is coming up. So he will have different, areas to work on. So everywhere it's very, very different. But yes, best practices adopted according to my requirement and my need.
You're right, ma'am. The screen time restrictions being imposed on all the schools is another disruption in these disruptive times. That again, we will have to look into the way we were giving the teaching learning process, and we have to formulate the entire process. Go
So
back to
every
our
day, it's like weekly, the timetable is being changed. Weekly, the
exactly.
timetable has to be changed according to the requirement and needs. So principal and the teachers are always on their toes.
And with unfortunately with children, routines are an important part of their life. So when you put routines in place, and then when these kind of disruptions
Yes.
happen,
Yes.
to some extent, it can be managed positively, but it can also bring about a little shift or a little negative disruption in the perspective of how they'll take it from emotional,
Absolutely. See,
emotional
government of Karnataka had closed down online classes. They
suddenly.
were, totally closed for about, I think, 1 month or 3 months. I mean, sorry, I think 3 weeks or something. I know for sure my grandson was just loitering around at home. I mean, he had nothing to do.
That's
He
right.
was just watching cartoons and he was just playing some games, and that's all. I mean, there was no structured teaching that was happening. So these are the challenges which are really, we are facing these challenges for sure.
You're totally right in this, ma'am. I don't understand sometimes the objective of certain regulations which come. So, having said that, we will move to our next panelist, Mr. Subramaniam. What do you have to say about this? That how was it with when you were dealing with this disruption on the after the problem solving, and then we have also done the collaboration, and then was it just one way for you? Was it just, or you had to go through a lot of trial and errors to arrive on a process?
As I said, process is something, is like, you draw the process. But one of the important element in the process is to say that, you go back and check. It's a loop, actually, he asked me. And another point in the last point in the process, whenever you write a SOP or something, is like, you need to go back and check and test. And again, it's working and reinvent everything. I agree with what Pratima ma'am has said, like, you need to maybe change your timetable or basis. To start with, the logins are working or not working, because the first thing is what you require is a platform to create an online, platform for the parents to log in. And, in the initial classes, of course, teachers were not ready to face the camera and teach. And neither the child was ready. See, for example, we being the first, this is the first academic year. So the child has never seen the teacher. Imagine in a physical class, in a physical school itself, on the day one, when you start a school, that itself is like it will be very chaotic, because you have a lot of new children coming up, there are a lot of existing people coming up, there are a lot of emotions will be playing there, and you have about 30 children in a class, and teacher has to manage them. So now, while that it's not enough, like now you have to manage the same thing on an online, which is like, I think, definitely very, very tough, I think, for anyone to manage. So I don't think, it was that, okay, this is which works for every school or for every class. No, it doesn't. I think every school or every institution, every teacher has gone through these multiple rounds of things, of trial and error. And I think while largely we know the framework, okay, this is where we need to operate it. This is how the guidelines are there. I think while in a typical classroom in a physical school, what happens? I think the same thing also happened in the last 2-3 months, even in an online school per se also. I just want to add one more thing here. While we're all talking about how the disruption has to be, sorry, how the disruption is helping us or not helping us, productive, not productive, has pushed us the corner and all those things. But what are the skills we need to acquire for the going forward? I just want to share one small picture which I came across in the last 3-4 days in one of the social media platform. Very, very interesting. Is my screen visible to everyone?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So very, very simple image and very, very, stunning message. So it talks about in just 10 years, a cameraman and pilot both have lost their jobs. So it talks about, upgrade or, see, for me, the answer is very, the question is very simple. Either you shape up or you ship out.
That's
I
right.
think this definitely, applies to all of us as educators in this space. Um, I'm actually, if you ask me, that's why I said this is not new to all of us. Yes, the only I think every school and every teacher has to tweak, themselves a little bit and get going.
That's right,
Hopefully,
sir.
I've
Yes, yes.
answered your thing.
Yes, yes, sir. You have answered. So you have actually said that it cannot be just one way of solving it, and evolution is a process of learning. So we need to evolve ourselves. With this, I come back to Dr. Balachandra. And sir, as you always have been saying from the beginning that learning is the core for everything, we all have come back to the same thing now. Now we are coming back to you saying that we have understood that learning is the only way we evolve ourselves. And in your initial statement, the first part, you have actually mentioned the importance of industry academia partnership. Now, with reference to that, when we see that so many skills being required, can you throw a little light on that?
Yeah. I'll also pick from where Mr. Subramaniam has left about people losing jobs. Most of you would have come across this Industry 4.0 and automation and even augmentation, human augmentation, where machines are going to take over and singularity. So a lot of these concepts are spoken about partly science fiction, but eventually we are getting there, whether we like it or not. So when so much of automation is going to take place, the schools and colleges have a major role to impart certain unique human strength oriented skills. For example, the critical thinking, this can never be surpassed. The creative thinking, rather, the creativity is, I think, still it is the domain of human beings, and collaboration, cooperation. So historically, even 8,000 years or 40,000 years when agriculture started, the tribes have formed around the river base. So the collaboration and cooperation only helped us to survive this far. So these skills have to play a major role. And I would also like to quote from a Canadian speaker who's very, very passionate about the school children and their learning. And she talks about a concept called POC, which is understood from the way dolphins behave. P stands for play. So dolphins are playful. And so if you are embarking on a learning mission, unless you are playful and go around in a very, very serious manner, the learning gets hampered. That's what she insists on. And she's also a psychiatrist. And so the second aspect she talks about dolphins is others. Others in the sense dolphins are social animals. And so you need to be empathetic with others. So it's not just the lessons learned in the classroom. How do you empathize with your fellow student, teacher, the society? So the environment, all this ills we are talking about, if those lessons are imparted along with the core curriculum, then it goes a long way. So the third skill she talks about is D, P-O-D, rather I mentioned it as C. D is a kind of dormancy. It's not that you are always busy, and even she picks from dolphins, one half of their brain always rests because it has to swim, and the other half goes up. So at times we never worry about our rest. We are always want to be very, very busy. And so again, a pandemic has given us an opportunity. It's a kind of a forced rest. And you also spoke about the self-reflections and time for interacting with other family members. So how do we embrace all this into our education system is a big question mark. But I think nature has given us an opportunity to reboot, revisit, and restart again. So that's my take here.
That's a beautiful way of actually taking it, sir. You have surfaced the 21st century skill set that we say. And as Subramaniam sir was saying that we have transited from talking to talking about, Pratima ma'am will also agree with me on this, that we have been talking and discussing about all the 21st century skills, but this was the time where we suddenly started using all the 21st century skills. And suddenly, and obviously, if I sum this up, I understand that disruptions cannot be dealt in one way. They need a strong will, a strong vision, and lot of resilience, collaboration, problem solving skills, and uniqueness. And when this disruption was dealt with all of these skills, added with the experience of our educators, we emerged into a model of school which is not confined, where we are not confining education to the brick mortar buildings. We never thought of this model before, but we have evolved into a new model where we have brought our schools on cloud, and we now reach out and give this, where we will be able to give this education to children across the borders. There is no boundaries now. And with this, at the same time, this also brings me to say the importance of giving our children the opportunity to develop the skills. This is what this disruption has not just helped with the professional development of us, as what Pratima ma'am was saying, that we need to learn before we give it. We need to be the learners and then we give it to students. But it has also given an opportunity for children to be those learners, and they also got into the mode of collaboration, and they also got into the mode of problem solving. Many of the children did face problems suddenly, so seeing their teachers on the screen. Instead, they cannot go and hug them, or they cannot hug their friends. So it was problem solving, collaboration, trial and error for all of us together. And that's where this unpredictable disruption has shifted our focus and brought a very, very positive outcome, is what I see. And I was of the thought that this was an uninvited disruption. If tomorrow we invite more such disruptions into our system, and this uninvited disruption brought about such a positive change. But if we invite more such disruptions, and then I'm sure that this will certainly increase the productivity of all of us, and we will start thinking out of the box, and we will certainly be able to reach and help our children equipped with skills which will not just help them live their lives, but earn their living and make a living also. With this, I would now like to give it to Disha. Disha,
yeah, tell me.
Giving it up to you, I would also like to give this responsibility to Metamorphosis to help us with a system or with a process that you can bring in, where we can engage our children. I see that problem solving, collaboration, trial and error, resilience, all these are entrepreneur skills.
Absolutely.
And you being one, you will totally, you were smiling all the way. So I understand that you were thinking of all those skills. Oh my God, this is just a part of what we want to say. So this is I would give it up to you to actually help us formulate a program where we are also facing this problem of off-screen education. If we can get certain programs which can fill those gaps, and I'm sure that it will help our children get prepared for tomorrow, certainly through education of today.
Firstly,
I would also like to add on one more thing. Emotional stability is very important now.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Because everybody is emotionally so challenged that emotional stability has to come into the picture.
Absolutely,
That's
totally
right,
agree.
That's right, ma'am. And I would like to end my summing up with one quote, that all disruption starts with introspection. So this was a platform created by Metamorphosis for all of us, where we have introspected education at all levels, from early years to primary to higher grade. And I'm sure that this will help us make this disruption even more positive for the entire education system.
Thank you so much, Kausar ma'am. It was a lovely discussion. I would like to thank each one of the panelists. I mean, we brought out certain skills which are really essential in today's world. Before I even jump into the questions, like you said, Kausamam, I'm surely as an organization, Metamorphosis is going to take this forward. And as we also have offline and online programs for schools from grades 6 to 12 to imbibe these skills, because these are very essential. Not only we're not heading towards, for students to, not necessarily every student has to come up with an idea, but it's the skill set which they develop, which helps them or supports them through a lifelong challenge in terms of whether you take risks or you have to have team collaboration, or whether it's leadership skills. No matter where they go, even heading larger companies, they really need these skills. So that's where we're heading, and we'll surely take this up. And as an organization, we're really honored to have all of you on our panel. So jumping into the questions, we have one question which has been asked. So how are you motivating the teachers during this pandemic, and what is the current retention rate? Any of you can take up this question.
You want me to take it up?
Yes, absolutely, ma'am. You can go ahead.
Yeah. So as I had mentioned earlier, that we have our teachers collaborating together. We are always there with them. We are taking them through a lot of professional development programs. We are guiding them. We are mentoring them. And I haven't seen any attrition as such in our school. So teachers know that whatever we are doing right now is for the student. They have their passion, they have their commitment for sure. So I don't think so that problem is there, because this is, of course, that's what we mentioned, that it's very new for the teachers. As Mr. Subramaniam had told that, some teachers are not ready to come onto the screen. They are so scared. But this is where we have built in their confidence. We have taken them into our confidence. Parents are appreciating the way they have evolved. So all these things together, make them motivated, totally motivated. And they know that they're doing something for the child. And they know that, they're doing something for the child. That's the best motivation.
So you say, Pratima ma'am, that motivating teachers is firstly being there for them, always being there for them, and secondly, importance of empowering them on every skill or every step that they need, as in giving the right curated professional development program is very, very.
It's been a 24 hours, schedule that we have. Anytime, whether it is 10 o'clock in the night or 11 o'clock in the night, if the teacher calls up and she says that I need help, we are always there for them. So it's a 24-hour call that we are on right now.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So I'm just going to take one more question, which is, so this is a very open question to any of you can take it up. New businesses create a lot more jobs, which basically come with new ideas to solve problems in better ways. But this is not taught to students until the age of degree. So how could we solve this problem?
Yeah, probably I'll attempt, because this is one area which is very, very close to my work. And essentially, I think, as I mentioned in my previous conversation thread, we are so much exam and mark oriented. We tend to miss many of these life skills to be imparted to students. So a couple of best practices which I have come across through social media. One teacher in Kerala, she brings elephant and other animals to the classroom through augmented reality and virtual reality, and the whole online class has got a new meaning through embracing technology. She was widely celebrated in the media. And even in the physical format, yesterday I saw one other video from Oh My God series. In Madhya Pradesh, one school teacher, he has trained 150 rural children, it's in rural setting, to use both hands and write simultaneously in both hands. So their speed of writing, comprehension, because both the compartments of brain is activated. As Pratima ma'am was mentioning, it's the passion of these individuals eventually transform. So coming back to the idea of imparting innovation or the business skills, I think we need to throw them in the open. We need to even make some lemonade and sell them, or some handicrafts. So all these school activities should transform into some business oriented activities. At college level, we are finding it extremely difficult to shift gears within 3-4 years to make them think through entrepreneurship. I think if it starts very, very early, and it's also important for organizations like Metamorphosis to bridge this gap which is existing as on today, to make teachers more enterprising and give that leeway. Obviously, there are challenges, Ms. Pratima has pointed out, within the confines of the curriculum, within the governmental guidelines, but that's where the creativity is at play. And so even the school culturals need not be done in the same boring way to bring Cinderellas back to the classroom, but they could even make it a trade fair or some business presentations. And in one school in US, a delegate from India visited. It's a high level delegation of government officials, and that particular day it was a pizza making day. So people were forced to learn the ingredients of pizza, and then it's not just pizza making and showing different flavors of pizza. It's about selling. How, when 20 students make the same pizza, how are they selling it? And one of the officials were really fascinated when he asked class 6 or 7 student, what is business or what is entrepreneurship? This person coolly answered, it is serving others. So that philosophical understanding, which is sitting in at very, very tender age, is going to help us all in the long way. I think we'll have to even celebrate failures, because the success is only celebrated in schools. We are happy showcasing the toppers, but failure for genuine reason needs to be strongly encouraged, and they need to be, the risk-taking abilities need to be inculcated. I think these are all my high-level thoughts.
Can I add on a little bit here? See, there is in one of the sessions, I heard that something called gig economy has come into picture, where teachers are doing a lot of, freelancing work. It's not only about teachers, it is about other professionals also. So that is the future of tomorrow. A lot of freelancing work will be done, in future by people. So I think that's a wide business opportunity that opens up for us. Tomorrow, if I retire from this, I'll have some freelancing work that I can do, right? So always there's an opportunity if we look at it. Definitely there'll be something for us as we move ahead.
I would also like to add one point here. If we try to inculcate or stress upon the importance of taking responsibility in children, when they are now on online classes, there is a certain responsibility that they will have to follow, if we try to stress upon that, even when they are in the classroom. So when they're learning also, there is a responsibility that they hold. And probably that can help them try with the knowledge that they gain. And it's not all about acquiring knowledge, but using it rightly to become the entrepreneur which they need to actually. As Sir was saying, Sir has shown us that picture showing us very clearly that jobs which are today won't be there tomorrow. So if you want to earn your living, then you need to create your own job. So this is a skill that you have to really, really think about for children, for their future.
Absolutely. I mean, I really like the way all of you put it across, and I totally agree with Bala sir as well that failure is something we should appreciate because that's going to lead us to success. So that's where I'm concluding this session. Thank you so much. I would like to thank each one of the panelists for your insights. It was really nice to have you here on a Sunday morning, removing just that hour to share your insights with us. Thank you so much. And to the viewers, stay tuned. We're going to come back next week with another set of very, very renowned educationists. So stay tuned, stay safe, and have a great day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Great meeting everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.